The massive council chamber stretched out like a small city. 47 different alien species sat in their special seats, each designed for their unique bodies. Some floated in water tanks, others hung from the ceiling, and a few stood on platforms of ice. The air buzzed with different languages being translated through small devices. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked slowly to the center of the room. Her simple black suit looked plain compared to the colorful robes and strange armor worn by the alien representatives. She carried a small data pad in her hands, containing Earth's request to become a full member of the Galactic Council. For 30 years, humans had been part of this group, but only as a protected, developing species. This meant other aliens made decisions for Earth. Humans could trade and learn, but they had no real voice in important matters. Elena hoped today would change that. The chamber fell quiet as Elena reached the speaking platform. High Chancellor Zeftar, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms, rose from his golden throne. His species, the Hegemony Coalition, controlled the largest space empire in the galaxy. When he spoke, others listened. "Today we consider Earth's request for standard member status," Zeftar announced. His voice echoed through translation devices in dozens of languages. "Ambassador Vasquez, please present your case." Elena activated her data pad and began to speak. She talked about Earth's contributions over the past 3 decades. Human farmers had helped feed colonies on 12 worlds. Human engineers had built mining stations in 5 systems. Human doctors had saved millions of alien lives during the plague of 2387. "We ask only for equal treatment," Elena concluded. "Humans have proven they can contribute to galactic civilization. We request the same rights as other member species." The chamber stayed silent for a long moment. Then Zeftar began to laugh. It started as a low rumble but grew louder. Soon, other aliens joined in. The sound filled the massive room like thunder. "Rights?" Zeftar stood to his full height of 3 meters. "What rights do pets deserve?" Elena felt her heart sink, but she kept her face calm. "High Chancellor, I don't understand." "Of course you don't," Zeftar said, walking closer to Elena. "How could a barely evolved primate understand complex galactic politics? Humans are useful. I'll give you that. You make decent farmers and adequate laborers. But full membership? Laughable." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Elena saw alien heads nodding and heard what sounded like approval in languages she didn't recognize. Zeftar continued his speech, warming to his theme. "Let's be honest about what humans really are. 30 years ago, you were throwing rocks at each other on your little blue planet. We found you, we taught you, we gave you technology you could never have developed alone, and now you want to sit at the same table as species who have ruled the stars for thousands of years?" Elena's hands clenched into fists, but she forced herself to stay still. She had faced worse insults during her military career, though those enemies had at least respected her as a threat. "The truth is," Zeftar announced to the chamber, "humans contribute very little to our civilization. A few farming colonies here, some small mining operations there. Nothing that couldn't be replaced by automated systems if needed. We keep you around because you're amusing, not because you're necessary." The laughter grew louder. Elena could see species she had considered friends joining in the mockery. The Zentaurans, whose children she had helped save during the plague. The Corvalian traders whom human engineers had assisted for years. Even the normally quiet, ethereal collective seemed to be enjoying the show. Zeftar raised one of his 4 arms for silence. "I propose we settle this matter once and for all. Instead of promoting Earth to standard member status, I suggest we demote them to ward status. Let humans be what they truly are, protected pets who exist at our pleasure." Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Ward status was barely above slavery. Ward species had no rights at all. They existed only to serve their protector species. "Second the motion," called out General Thrax of the warrior caste. His insect-like features clicked with amusement. "Thirded," added Queen Melody of the Singing Worlds. Her voice, usually beautiful, now sounded cruel. Elena watched in growing horror as species after species voiced their agreement. These were beings she had worked with, laughed with, shared meals with during diplomatic functions. Now they spoke about her people like they were discussing livestock. "All in favor of demoting Earth to ward status?" Zeftar called out. The vote was devastating. 46 hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose in favor. Only one voice spoke against it. A small, timid representative from a species so minor, Elena had never learned their name. "Motion carried," Zeftar announced with satisfaction. "Earth is hereby demoted to ward status, effective immediately. Humans will be assigned to the protection of the Hegemony Coalition, who will decide their fate." Elena stood in the center of the chamber as alien voices celebrated around her. She felt strangely calm now, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small communication device. "Protocol Omega," she spoke quietly into the device. "Authorization Vasquez 77 Alpha." The device beeped once in confirmation. Somewhere in the Sol system, her message had been received. Elena put away the communicator and looked up at Zeftar. The High Chancellor was still grinning, clearly pleased with himself and the day's entertainment. "You look upset, little human," Zeftar said. "Don't worry. We'll take good care of your species. Perhaps we'll find you nice work in the mines or the agricultural stations." Elena smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a pleasant smile. "High Chancellor," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. "On behalf of the human race, I hereby notify this council that Earth withdraws from all treaties, agreements, and contracts, effective immediately." The laughter died away. Confused murmurs replaced the celebration. "You can't do that," Zeftar said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "Actually, I can," Elena replied. "Earth maintained the right to withdraw from all agreements under Article 7 of the First Contact Treaty, the same treaty that brought us into this council 30 years ago." She turned to address the entire chamber, her voice growing stronger with each word. "For 30 years, humans have honored every agreement we made. We fulfilled every obligation, met every deadline, and contributed far more than we ever received. We did this while you consistently underestimated us, dismissed us, and treated us as inferior." Elena began walking toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. "You wanted to see us as primitives?" she called over her shoulder. "You've made your choice. Now you'll live with the consequences. And High Chancellor?" She stopped at the chamber doors and turned back one final time. "You'll understand soon enough what you've done today." The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss, leaving the Galactic Council in stunned silence. 24 hours after Elena Vasquez left the council chamber, the first emergency reports began flooding in. Captain Vorthak of the Hegemony Trade Authority stared at his communication screen in disbelief. The message was simple and polite, but its meaning was devastating. "Terra Shipping Incorporated regrets to inform you that all shipping contracts are hereby terminated, effective immediately. All cargo currently in transit will be delivered to the nearest available port and held for pickup. We thank you for your business over the past 30 years. Vorthak's 4 arms trembled as he checked his shipping manifests. Terra Shipping handled 43% of all cargo moving between the core worlds and the outer rim. Without them, the entire trade network would collapse within days. He quickly sent messages to other shipping companies, offering double rates for emergency coverage. The responses came back quickly, and they all said the same thing. Their ships were already overbooked. There simply weren't enough vessels to replace the human fleet. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On the mining world of Kepler 442, Supervisor Grix watched in confusion as human workers began packing their equipment. He had always thought the human operation was small, maybe 50 workers running a minor extraction site. "Where are you going?" Grix asked the human supervisor, a woman named Sarah Chen. "Home," Sarah replied simply. "Our contract has been terminated." "But you can't leave! You're under protection as a developing species." Sarah looked up from the massive drilling machine she was disconnecting. "Not anymore. Yesterday your council decided we were pets. Pets don't have contracts." Grix felt panic rising in his chest. "How long will you be gone? A few days? A week?" "Forever," Sarah said. She gestured to the mountains around them. "Good luck getting those rare metals yourself. Oh, and you might want to evacuate the colony in the next 48 hours. "Why?" "Because this isn't a small mining operation, Supervisor. We were extracting 200 tons of rare elements daily. Without our atmospheric processors, this world will become uninhabitable in about 3 days." Grix stared as the humans continued their work. He had been on Kepler 442 for 5 years and had never realized how dependent the colony was on human technology. The air recycling, water purification, even the gravity generators that let his people walk normally, all of it was human-built and human-maintained. On the agricultural world of Harvest Prime, similar panic was spreading. The colony's food production had tripled since humans arrived 10 years earlier. Governor Zelith had assumed it was due to improved farming techniques taught by human advisors. Now he watched as those same advisors packed up equipment he had never seen before. Massive machines that seemed to reshape the very soil, genetic sequencers that could modify crops in days instead of years, atmospheric processors that controlled weather patterns across the entire continent. "This is all yours?" Zelith asked the human team leader, Dr. Amanda Foster. "Everything you see," Amanda confirmed. "The improved soil, the weather control systems, the enhanced crops, all human technology." "But I thought you were just teachers," Amanda smiled sadly. "We were. We taught your people how to use basic farming equipment while we used our real technology to keep your world fed. We thought if we worked quietly in the background, everyone would benefit." "How much of our food production depends on your systems?" "About 90%, Amanda replied. "Without our atmospheric processors, your crops will start failing within a month. Without our soil enhancers, nothing will grow within a year." Zelith felt faint. "But millions of people depend on this world's food exports." "That's not our problem anymore. Your council made it clear that we're just pets. Pets don't run agricultural worlds." The emergency council session was called 18 hours after the withdrawals began. High Chancellor Zeftar looked tired and angry as alien representatives shouted questions and demands. "How could we not know?" General Thrax clicked angrily. "How could humans control so much infrastructure without us realizing?" "They were supposed to be a minor species." Queen Melody's beautiful voice was strained with stress. "Small farming operations, basic shipping services." Intelligence reports kept flowing in, each one more shocking than the last. Human companies that everyone had assumed were tiny local businesses were revealed to be massive operations. The small medical supply company on Rigel Station provided 60% of all pharmaceuticals to the Outer Rim colonies. The modest transportation service ran shipping for 12 major trade routes. Admiral Corvus, the military advisor to the Hegemony Coalition, stood to address the chamber. "We've completed our preliminary assessment. The economic damage is severe." "How severe?" Zeftar demanded. 3 entire sectors are facing complete supply chain collapse. Food shortages are already appearing on 7 major worlds. Critical medical supplies will run out within 2 weeks on 43 colonies. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives demanded action, solutions, answers that no one seemed to have. "Deploy the fleet," suggested General Thrax. "Force them to honor their contracts." "With what authority?" Admiral Corvus replied. They legally withdrew from all treaties. We have no jurisdiction over human space. Then we'll take jurisdiction. Zeftar slammed his fist on his throne. They're pets. Pets don't get to make these decisions. A new voice cut through the arguing. Actually, they do. Everyone turned to see Elder Karim of the Legal Council, an ancient being who rarely spoke during sessions. When he did speak, others listened. The humans invoked Article 7 of the First Contact Treaty, Elder Karim continued. This article allows any species to withdraw from all agreements if they feel their basic rights have been violated. The article was included specifically to prevent stronger species from enslaving weaker ones. But we're not enslaving them, Zeftar protested. We're protecting them. By demoting them to ward status against their will? By treating them as pets? The legal definition of slavery includes forced subservience to another species. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Not only had they lost access to critical human infrastructure, but they had done so in a way that gave the humans complete legal justification. While the council argued, Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the human embassy ship. Through the transparent walls, she could see Nexus Prime Station bustling with emergency traffic. Alien vessels rushed back and forth, carrying supplies to replace what human companies had stopped providing. Her communication device beeped with an incoming message from Earth. She read it quickly, then smiled for the second time in 2 days. Captain Sarah Okafor, Elena's military aide, approached cautiously. "Ma'am, you look pleased." "The withdrawal is proceeding faster than expected," Elena replied. "Human personnel are being evacuated from over 400 installations across the galaxy. Our shipping companies have suspended operations on all major trade routes, and—" She paused, savoring the moment. 3 alien governments have already sent private messages asking to negotiate separate agreements with Earth. They're abandoning the Council? They're being practical. The Corvalians just lost access to their primary food supply. The Zentorans need our medical technology to treat a plague outbreak on their homeworld. The ethereal collective depends entirely on human-built quantum communicators for their collective consciousness. Elena turned away from the window and faced her aide. "Phase 1 is complete, Captain. The galaxy now knows they have a problem. Phase 2 begins tomorrow." "What's Phase 2, ma'am?" Elena's smile turned cold. "Tomorrow they learn exactly how big that problem really is." As if summoned by her words, space around Nexus Prime began to shimmer. Massive ships decloaked, appearing from empty space like ghosts becoming solid. They were sleek, beautiful, and completely unknown to galactic databases. On the station, emergency alarms began to sound. Alien sensors had never seen anything like these vessels. They were clearly advanced, clearly powerful, and clearly human. Elena activated her personal communicator and sent a message to the Galactic Council. "Admiral Elena Vasquez requests an audience with the emergency session. I have something to show you." 1 week after Elena Vasquez walked out of the council chamber, the galaxy was in chaos. Emergency sessions ran around the clock as reports of economic collapse poured in from every sector. High Chancellor Zeftar stood before a wall of screens showing crisis after crisis. Colony worlds that had depended on human food imports faced starvation. Mining operations had shut down when human atmospheric processors failed. Trade routes sat empty because there simply weren't enough non-human ships to carry the cargo. "How did we miss this?" he asked Admiral Corvus for the 100th time. "How did a primitive species infiltrate our entire economy?" "They didn't infiltrate it," Admiral Corvus replied grimly. "They built it. We just didn't realize what we were looking at." The screens showed the devastating numbers. 60% of medical supplies across 3 sectors came from human manufacturers. 40% of food production relied on human agricultural technology. The quantum communication network that connected most of the galaxy was maintained by human technicians. Sir, a communications officer called out. Admiral Vasquez is requesting permission to address the emergency council session. Absolutely not, Zeftar snarled. That human caused this crisis. I won't give her a platform to gloat. Sir, the officer continued nervously, she says she has a demonstration to show the council. Before Zeftar could respond, the massive view screen in the council chamber activated on its own. The alien faces around the circular room turned to look as Elena Vasquez appeared on the screen. But she wasn't standing in a simple embassy office anymore. Behind Elena stretched a command bridge that looked like something out of a dream. Sleek consoles curved in perfect lines. Holographic displays showed star charts with detail beyond anything the council had seen. And through the massive transparent walls, space itself was visible. But it wasn't empty space. Hundreds of ships filled the view. Vessels unlike anything in galactic databases. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. Some were small and fast. Others were enormous beyond comprehension. Members of the Galactic Council, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. Allow me to properly introduce myself. I am Admiral Elena Vasquez, former commander of the Sol Defense Fleet, current commander of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. Zeftar felt his 4 hearts skip beats. Fleet? The humans had claimed to possess only a few exploration vessels. For 30 years, Elena continued, humanity has participated in galactic civilization with one goal: peaceful coexistence. We shared our basic technology freely. We helped where we could. We asked for little in return. The view behind Elena shifted, showing more ships appearing from what had seemed like empty space. They just materialized, as if they had been hiding in the darkness between stars. But we were never the primitive species you believed us to be. Every human who worked in your space was an observer, learning your strengths and weaknesses. Every piece of technology we shared was carefully chosen to help you without revealing our true capabilities. Elder Karim, the ancient legal advisor, leaned forward in his floating chair. How many ships do you have out there? Elena's smile was polite but cold. Currently, about 1,200 vessels in this immediate area. But that's just the first fleet. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. 1,200 ships was larger than some entire planetary navies. This is impossible, General Thrax clicked angrily. Our sensors would have detected a fleet that size. Your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect, Elena replied. We've had 30 years to study your technology. Did you think we were just looking at your pretty lights? Admiral Corvus stepped forward. Those ships, they don't match any known design principles. What are they powered by? Controlled fusion, primarily, though some of our larger vessels use matter conversion reactors. We developed both technologies about 15 years ago. The smaller ships use gravitational manipulation for propulsion. Gravitational manipulation is theoretical, protested Dr. Zenith, the Council's chief scientist. For you, perhaps. We solved the mathematics 12 years ago. Elena gestured, and the view changed to show Earth itself. But this wasn't the planet the Council remembered from their databases. Massive orbital stations surrounded the world like a ring of artificial stars. The surface gleamed with cities that stretched to the horizon. Earth's population is not the 12 billion we reported, Elena said calmly. It's 50 billion. We also have colonies on 237 worlds that don't appear on any of your star charts. The silence in the council chamber was complete. Even the automatic translation system seemed to have stopped working as alien minds struggled to process what they were seeing. But why? Queen Melody's voice was barely a whisper. Why hide all of this? Because we learned from your histories, Elena replied. Every time a new species joins galactic civilization, they're either conquered by stronger powers or they conquer others to survive. We chose a third option. We pretended to be weak while we became strong. General Thrax's insect features twitched with rage. This is deception, fraud. You lied to us for decades. We shared what you needed to know. We fulfilled every agreement we made. We never attacked anyone or threatened anyone. We simply kept our private affairs private. Elena's expression hardened. Which is exactly what you would have done if your positions were reversed. Zeftar found his voice again. What do you want? Are you here to conquer us? To take revenge? I want what I asked for a week ago. Respect and equal treatment, but you've made that more complicated. The view shifted again, this time showing supply ships moving between human vessels and various colony worlds. But they weren't moving toward the colonies. They were moving away from them. 3 major worlds have already declared independence from the Galactic Council and requested protection from the Human Defense Federation, Elena announced. The Corvallians, Zentaurans, and 2 others realized that their survival depends on human technology. You're breaking up the Council, Zeftar accused. The Council broke itself when it decided to treat us as pets. We're simply accepting requests for mutual defense agreements from species that want to survive. Admiral Corvus studied the ships on the screen with a military eye. Your vessels, they're not just advanced. They're beyond anything we can build. How far beyond? Elena considered the question. Our newest ships can cross the galaxy in 6 months. They can survive in the space between galaxies. They can detect objects in other dimensions. She paused, letting that sink in. We've been very patient with galactic civilization. We hoped you would eventually accept us as equals. But patience has limits. Dr. Zenith raised a tentative appendage. The technology you're describing, it would require theoretical breakthroughs we haven't even imagined. How long have you been working on this? Since the day we first encountered your scout ship in the Sol system. We realized immediately that we were joining a community where strength determined survival. So we got strong. The view changed one final time, showing a schematic of human space. It was vast, hundreds of star systems connected by routes that bypassed all known galactic territories. The Council had thought humans controlled a few planets around Earth. In reality, they controlled more territory than the 3 largest Council members combined. We built our own civilization parallel to yours, Elena explained. We traded with you, learned from you, but we never depended on you. We could have revealed ourselves years ago, but we kept hoping diplomacy would work. Zeftar slumped in his throne. Everything he thought he knew about galactic power had just been turned upside down. The species he had mocked as barely evolved primates controlled more advanced technology than anyone in the Council. What happens now? He asked quietly. Elena's expression softened slightly. That depends on you. We can rebuild this relationship on equal terms, or we can go our separate ways. But the days of treating humans as inferior are over. She gestured to the fleet around her ship. You've seen what we're capable of. You've experienced what happens when we withdraw our support. The choice is yours. Respect us as equals, or watch your civilization struggle without us. And if we choose respect, Elder Karim asked, then we work together to build something better than what existed before. Our technology, your experience, everyone contributing equally. And if we don't? Elena's smile returned, cold and final. Then you'll discover that everything you've seen so far was just us being polite. 2 weeks after Elena Vasquez revealed the human fleet, High Chancellor Zeftar made the biggest mistake of his long political career. He decided that humans were bluffing. They have impressive ships, he told the Emergency War Council. But ships don't win wars. Experience does. Training does. The will to fight does. Admiral Corvus looked uncomfortable. Sir, their technology appears to be significantly more advanced than ours. Technology they've never tested in real combat, Zeftar replied. We've fought wars for thousands of years. They've been in space for barely 3 decades. When faced with experienced warriors, their fancy toys will crumble. General Thrax clicked his agreement. The warrior castes have never lost a battle to an untested enemy. These humans may have numbers, but we have skill. The plan was simple, and Zeftar believed foolproof. A combined council fleet would move to secure Kepler Station, a strategic way station in neutral space that controlled access to 3 major trade routes. The humans would be forced to either abandon an important position or fight for it. Either way, the council would win. If the humans retreated, it would prove they were cowards who could be pushed around. If they fought, the experienced council forces would destroy them and end the crisis quickly. The council fleet that assembled at the staging point was impressive by any standard. 237 ships from 12 different species, representing the finest military technology the galaxy had to offer. The hegemony contributed their newest dreadnoughts. The warrior castes brought their legendary battle cruisers. The singing worlds provided ships that could coordinate attacks through harmonic frequencies. Admiral Corvus commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive vessel that had participated in 17 major battles without a single defeat. Around him, his bridge crew worked with the confidence of professionals who had never faced anything they couldn't handle. "Approaching Kepler Station," reported the navigation officer. "Distance, 4 light minutes." "Any sign of human forces?" Corvus asked. "Negative, sir. The station appears to be defended by only 12 vessels." Corvus frowned. 12 ships against his fleet of over 200? Either the humans were insane or this was a trap. But his sensors showed nothing else in the system. No hidden fleets, no reinforcements, just 12 sleek ships that seemed almost small compared to his massive dreadnoughts. "Open communications," he ordered. The main screen lit up with Elena Vasquez's face. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking calm and completely unworried. "Admiral Corvus," she said politely, "I assume you're here to take control of Kepler Station." "Surrender now," Corvus replied, "and your ships will be allowed to withdraw. Resist, and we'll destroy you." Elena smiled. "I appreciate the offer, Admiral, but I'm afraid I must decline. You're outnumbered 20-1. Numbers aren't everything, but if you insist on learning that lesson the hard way, please proceed." Corvus cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Target the human ships. Fire when ready." The council fleet opened fire with everything they had: energy beams, missile salvos, and exotic weapons that could tear holes in space itself streaked toward the human vessels. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human ships didn't try to dodge. They didn't return fire. They just sat there as the devastating barrage approached them. Then something impossible happened. The attacks simply stopped. Energy beams flickered out of existence meters before reaching their targets. Missiles exploded harmlessly against invisible barriers. Even the space-tearing weapons seemed to hit some kind of wall and dissipate. "Report!" Corvus shouted. "Sir, all weapons hit their targets but caused no damage. The humans appear to have some kind of perfect defense system." "That's impossible. Nothing can stop that much firepower." On the human ships, adaptive energy shields shimmered as they absorbed and redirected the attack. The technology was based on principles the Council hadn't even theorized yet. Shields that could analyze incoming weapons in real time and generate perfect countermeasures. Elena activated communications again. "Are you finished, Admiral?" "How did you do that?" Corvus demanded. "Adaptive shielding. We studied every weapon system in your databases and designed defenses against them. Your weapons are quite impressive, but they're also predictable." Elena gestured to something off-screen. "Now let me show you ours." The human ships began to move, but not in any way that made sense. They seemed to slide sideways through space, ignoring basic laws of physics. One ship suddenly appeared behind the Council fleet, as if it had teleported. Another seemed to split into 3 copies of itself. "What's happening?" Corvus asked his sensor operator. "Sir, I don't know. Our sensors show the human ships in multiple locations simultaneously. Some readings suggest they're moving faster than light while still in normal space." The truth was even more disturbing. Human ships used controlled gravity fields to bend space around them, allowing them to move in directions that didn't exist for other species. They could be in multiple positions at once by creating temporary folds in space-time. "Sir," the communications officer shouted, "we're receiving signals from all ships in the fleet." "What kind of signals?" "Surrender requests, sir. Every ship is asking permission to surrender." Corvus stared at his displays in disbelief. His entire fleet was intact, undamaged, and completely helpless. Every ship showed the same status: all weapons offline, engines dead, life support on emergency power. "The humans did this? How?" Elena's voice came over the communication system, speaking to the entire Council fleet. "Your ships are not damaged, Admiral. Their systems have simply been adjusted. We've rewritten the software in your computers, modified the control protocols in your weapons, and temporarily disabled your engines." "But that's impossible. Our systems are isolated. They're protected by quantum encryption." "Quantum encryption is an interesting challenge," Elena admitted. "It took our computers almost 3 full seconds to break through it." Admiral Corvus felt something he had never experienced in decades of military service: complete, helpless terror. His enemy hadn't just defeated him. They had taken control of his ships without firing a shot. "How?" he whispered. "We've had 30 years to study your technology, remember? Every human technician who worked on your ship sent detailed reports back to Earth. Every trade agreement gave us access to your computer systems. Every diplomatic meeting let us scan your equipment." Elena's image appeared on every screen in the Council fleet. "We know your ships better than you do. We know exactly how they work, what their weaknesses are, and how to exploit them." General Thrax's voice crackled over the communication system from his disabled battlecruiser. "You said you were peaceful. This is an act of war." "No, General. War would be if we destroyed your fleet. This is just a demonstration." Elena gestured again, and suddenly all the Council ship's systems came back online. Weapons recharged, engines restarted, life support returned to normal. In seconds, the fleet was fully operational again. "As you can see," Elena continued, "we could have destroyed you all. We chose not to. The question is, will you learn from this experience?" Admiral Corvus stared at his controls, unable to believe that his ship was working normally after being completely helpless moments before. "What do you want?" "The same thing I've wanted from the beginning: respect and equal treatment. But now you understand the consequences of refusing." Elena's expression became serious. "Admiral, you're a good soldier following orders from politicians who made a terrible mistake. I don't want to hurt you or your crews, but I will if you force me to." "And if we withdraw?" "Then you return to your council and explain what happened here. You tell them that humans aren't pets or primitives. We're a spacefaring civilization with technology beyond your current understanding." Corvus looked around his bridge at crew members who had never known defeat. They stared back with expressions of shock and growing respect for an enemy they had underestimated completely. "What about our wounded pride?" he asked quietly. Elena's smile became warmer. "Pride heals, Admiral. Dead friends don't. Choose wisely." The Council fleet began its withdrawal 30 minutes later, every ship intact but every crew member forever changed. They had seen the future of galactic warfare, and it belonged to the species they had dismissed as barely evolved primates. As the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, Elena stood on her bridge looking out at the stars. Her communication officer approached cautiously. "Ma'am, we're receiving emergency transmissions from across the galaxy. 7 more worlds are requesting protection from the Human Defense Federation. The Corvallian government has officially withdrawn from the Galactic Council. The Zentaran Empire is demanding an immediate vote of no confidence in High Chancellor Zeftar." Elena nodded. "And Zeftar himself?" "Still silent, ma'am, but intelligence suggests he's in emergency meetings with his inner circle." "He's deciding whether to negotiate or double down on his mistake," Elena mused. "Let's hope he chooses wisely." She turned away from the window and faced her crew. "Prepare for the next phase. If the Council won't learn from a gentle lesson, perhaps they need a more dramatic one." 1 month after the Battle of Kepler Station, the Galactic Council faced its darkest hour. Half the member species had either declared independence or demanded major reforms. 3 entire sectors operated under human protection agreements. The galactic economy had collapsed so completely that some worlds had returned to bartering for basic supplies. High Chancellor Zeftar stood alone in his private office, staring out at the space around Nexus Prime. Where once hundreds of ships had bustled with trade and diplomacy, now only a few desperate vessels moved between the stars. The great galactic civilization he had helped build was crumbling around him. A soft chime announced a visitor. Admiral Corvus entered, looking older than his years. The defeat at Kepler Station had changed him. The proud military leader now moved with the careful steps of someone who had learned humility the hard way. "Sir," Corvus said quietly, "the emergency council session is ready to begin." "How many members are attending?" Zeftar asked, without turning around. 23, sir. Down from 47. Zeftar closed his eyes. More than half the council had abandoned them. Species that had been loyal for centuries had decided their futures lay with the humans rather than the traditional galactic order. "And the humans?" Admiral Vasquez has agreed to address the session. Her ship arrived this morning. Zeftar finally turned away from the window. "Just one ship?" "Yes, sir. But our sensors detect at least 50 more vessels in nearby systems. They're not hiding anymore." The walk to the council chamber felt like a funeral march. The once grand corridors of Nexus Prime were half empty. Many alien delegations had simply packed up and left, taking their staff and resources with them. The remaining representatives sat in a chamber that felt too large for their reduced numbers. Elena Vasquez entered through the main doors, but she wasn't alone. Behind her walked representatives from the species that had joined the Human Defense Federation. The Corvallians, Zentorans, and others who had once been loyal council members now stood with the humans. Elena took her place at the center of the chamber where, weeks earlier, she had been humiliated and dismissed. Now she commanded the attention of every being in the room. "High Chancellor," she began, her voice carrying easily through the reduced space. "You asked for this meeting. I assume you have something to say." Zeftar stood slowly, his 4 arms hanging at his sides. For the first time in his political career, he felt genuinely lost. Everything he had believed about strength, civilization, and galactic order had proven wrong. "Admiral Vasquez," he said, his voice lacking its usual authority. We need to discuss terms." "Terms for what?" "Reconstruction, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it." Zeftar gestured to the half-empty chamber. "This council is dying. Our civilization is fragmenting. You've won." Elena studied the alien leader for a long moment. "High Chancellor, I didn't want to win. I wanted to belong." "I don't understand." Elena walked closer to the central platform. 30 years ago, when humans first encountered your scout ship, we were afraid. We had just learned that we weren't alone in the universe, and we didn't know if that was wonderful or terrifying. She gestured to the alien representatives around the chamber. "We chose to see it as wonderful. We chose to believe that advanced civilizations would be wise, just, and welcoming. We chose to trust you. Zeftar felt something painful twist in his chest. And we failed you. You failed yourselves, Elena replied. We always knew we were different, younger, smaller, less experienced. But we hoped that wouldn't matter if we proved our worth through actions. Dr. Zenith, one of the few remaining original council members, spoke up hesitantly. Your actions. They were impressive, but you hid your true capabilities from us. Because we learned from your histories, Elena responded. Every species that revealed their full strength too early was either conquered or forced to conquer others to survive. We chose a third path, quiet cooperation while building the strength to protect ourselves if necessary. General Thrax, his insect features subdued by recent events, clicked softly. We thought you were weak. We know. And for 30 years, we let you think that while we helped build the civilization, you're now watching collapse. Elena activated a small device, and holographic displays filled the chamber. They showed the current state of the galaxy. Trade routes empty, colonies struggling, entire sectors operating in isolation. This is what happens when cooperation breaks down, she continued. This is what happens when strength becomes more important than wisdom, when fear replaces trust. Elder Karim floated forward in his chair. What do you propose we do about it? We build something better. Elena gestured, and the displays changed to show detailed plans. New trade networks, shared technology programs, cooperative defense agreements. But the structure was different from the old council. Instead of a hierarchy based on military and economic power, it showed a federation of equals. The Galactic Federation, Elena announced. Every species contributes according to their abilities. Every species benefits according to their needs. No member species holds dominance over others. Zeftar stared at the plans. They were comprehensive, detailed, and clearly the result of years of careful thought. You've been planning this for a long time. Since the day we joined the original council. We hoped we could reform it from within, but... Elena shrugged. Sometimes you have to start over. And our role in this new federation? Queen Melody asked, her beautiful voice uncertain. Whatever you make it. The species that join as equals will be treated as equals. Those that prefer independence can pursue it. But the days of stronger species dominating weaker ones are over. General Thrax clicked nervously. And if we refuse? If we try to rebuild the old system? Elena's expression hardened slightly. Then you'll discover that the humans aren't the only species tired of the old ways. The Corvalians, Zentorans, and 18 other former council members have already agreed to the new Federation structure. Admiral Corvus stepped forward. Admiral Vasquez, I have to ask. Your technology, your fleets, your hidden colonies. How long were you holding back? Elena was quiet for a moment, considering her answer. Since the day we first reached for the stars, Admiral, we learned early in our history that the greatest strength is the one your enemies never see coming. But we weren't your enemies, Zeftar protested. Weren't you? You spent 3 decades treating us as inferior, dismissing our contributions and finally attempting to enslave us. What would you call that? Zeftar had no answer. The truth was too painful to speak aloud. They had been enemies to humanity without even realizing it. However, Elena continued, we don't want enemies. We want partners. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us to thrive, but only if we work together. She gestured to the holographic displays again. Human technology can solve food shortages, medical crises, and energy problems across dozens of worlds, but we can't solve social problems, cultural conflicts, or political disputes. That requires the wisdom and experience of older civilizations. Elder Karim spoke slowly, You're offering us a chance to contribute rather than dominate. I'm offering you a chance to be part of something better than what came before, but only if you're willing to see other species as equals rather than subjects. The chamber fell silent as the remaining council members considered Elena's words. Finally, Zeftar stood and walked to the center of the room. He stopped directly in front of Elena and did something he had never done in his long career. He bowed. "Admiral Vasquez," he said formally, "I apologize for my actions and words. I failed to see the wisdom and strength of your people. I failed as a leader and as a representative of galactic civilization." Elena studied the alien leader's face. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something she had rarely seen in galactic politics: genuine humility. "Apology accepted, High Chancellor. But apologies don't rebuild trust. Actions do." "What actions would you require?" Elena smiled, and for the first time since this crisis began, it was a warm smile. "Help us build something worthy of the stars. Help us create a civilization that measures strength not by the ability to dominate others, but by the willingness to lift them up." One by one, the remaining council members stood and voiced their agreement. It wasn't unanimous. 3 species chose to leave rather than accept the new order, but it was enough. As the session ended and representatives began working on the details of the new federation, Zeftar approached Elena privately. "Admiral," he said quietly, "I have to ask. When you first applied for upgraded status, if we had simply said yes, would any of this have been necessary?" Elena considered the question seriously. "Probably not. We would have continued as we had been, contributing quietly, helping where we could, building strength just in case. The galaxy would have continued much as it was. But this is better?" Elena looked around the chamber where former enemies were now working together on plans for a better future. "Ask me in 50 years, High Chancellor. But yes, I think this is better. Even though it required all of this." Elena's expression became thoughtful. "Sometimes the only way to build something new is to let the old system collapse. We didn't want to destroy the Council, but we weren't going to let it destroy us either." 5 years later, the Galactic Federation had become everything Elena had envisioned and more. Trade flourished under new cooperative agreements. Scientific breakthroughs came from joint research projects. Former enemies worked together on challenges that benefited everyone. High Chancellor Zeftar, now serving as Earth's liaison to the former hegemony worlds, stood in the same observation deck where Elena had once watched the old Council's emergency sessions. But instead of crisis and chaos, space around the station bustled with peaceful activity. "Regrets?" Elena asked, joining him at the window. "Many," Zeftar replied honestly, "but not about this. This was necessary. Even though it cost you your position and power?" Zeftar turned to face the human admiral who had changed his world. "I spent decades accumulating power over others. You taught me something better, the power to help others succeed." Elena smiled. "The galaxy is large enough for all of us to succeed, Chancellor. It just took us a while to remember that." As they watched ships from dozens of species working together in peaceful cooperation, both leaders knew that the galaxy had finally begun to fulfill the promise that had brought humanity to the stars in the first place, the chance to build something worthy of the infinite possibilities that awaited among the stars.